Hey, what is up and welcome back to my channel. If you're the owner of a Fujifilm camera, there's a rite of passage that you're gonna have to go through at some point in time. It's the age-old question of Lightroom versus Capture One, and here's how it went for me. You buy your Fuji camera, you're so excited. For a while, you shoot in JPEG only, because let's be honest, JPEGs and Fuji are really impressive, and you like the film simulations too. You start feeling a little restricted in the edit room, and you start shooting in RAW. Now from the get-go, you feel totally underwhelmed by the results you get after importing your RAWs into Lightroom. And no matter what you do, the results just don't get better. Did I just spend a couple of £1,000 on a camera that produces files that look like this? You start to pull through your archives and dig out the Canon DSLR that you used to use 10 years ago when you first started learning photography. Surely my Fuji mirrorless camera can produce results much better than this. You start to do some research. You find it, the Fuji RAW file rabbit hole. And it's a big discovery. The APS-C camera that you own has a sensor that is different to the rest of the APS-C cameras on the market. And the software that you're using is not optimized to deal with it. Wait, is there an alternative? Can I be unlocking another world of sharpness and clarity? Suddenly you have a spring in your step. Capture One could be the key. But then again, you've never used it before. And also you've already got that subscription for Lightroom. But Capture One does have a trial. Maybe it's worth trying. I've just got out on the other side, and I'm pleased to say that I've gone through the Fuji rite of passage. But which path will I be taking? Let's get into it. Now Lightroom and Capture One are actually more similar than you might think. The differences are pretty significant, but the similarities are much higher in number. From the get-go, Capture One lets you customize pretty much your entire user interface. Which panels go where, groupings, default settings, all that jazz. It's pretty much the equivalent of having an Android versus having an iOS device. And so if you're into that, you'll be into this. First thing to tackle is the sharpness of the Fuji RAW files. From the moment I imported the files into Capture One, I truly was blown away. I use a 4K monitor, and the difference really was accentuated to me from the get-go. As Lightroom hasn't been designed to optimize Fuji RAW files, you really struggle to get sharpness based on the default sliders within it. Whereas for Capture One, this isn't a problem at all because it is optimized for Fuji files. But what about the rest of the application? Are there going to be any changes to your workflow as a result of switching to Capture One? And that's now when things get a little bit different, because Capture One introduces a concept that Lightroom has no idea of, and that is the concept of sessions. Now this is very different to the way that Lightroom organizes files. It uses catalogs. And of course with Capture One you can also use catalogs too, but the fact that you've got this option of sessions really is a great addition too. What it allows are smaller files that let you manage all of the details of your particular shoot. And this is great for one-off photo shoots, which you can complete all your editing for and then hopefully never open them ever again. There's also the ability to link in session files into one Capture One catalog. If you're a travel or street photographer who likes having a catalog to easily navigate and maintain all your files in one place, sessions will not be for you. But I really like the idea of sessions. The ability to move your files around in your project and have them actually move in the underlying folder structure into select folders and trash folders is something I found a really great addition. Catalogs for me are a bit of a creativity drain. The idea of maintaining this one big, massive, clunky collection of all of my images is enough to make me want to never edit again. And yes, I do use collections and collection sets in Lightroom, but it's not quite the same thing. Another key difference between Lightroom and Capture One is that Capture One introduces the concept of layers. This is very similar to using layers in Adobe Photoshop, where you basically could have your image at the bottom untouched and have all your incremental changes on layers above that. Now, of course, you don't have to edit this way in Capture One, but you have that option if that's something that you're ever into, which is great. The trouble that I had though with Capture One, and for me is kind of a deal breaker, is the lack of presets that have been developed for the system. Now don't get me wrong, I could go and spend ages looking for presets that might match what it is that I need from them. But the truth is, I already have a whole bunch of presets within Lightroom that I've already paid for. And at the moment, there isn't a reliable way to port these over to Capture One. And for me, that is a deal breaker. And although there are a couple of third parties out there who do produce styles to use within Capture One, this list is far more limited than the Lightroom equivalent. If you're an established photographer who has their own developed style, it really would be quite easy for you to reproduce these within Capture One. Whereas in my case, I'm still figuring out what my style is. And for that reason, these presets that I've bought are a key starting point for me to get my edits done. So for that reason mainly, I'm sticking to Lightroom for now. But there is one key change that I'm going to be making. And this is an option that John Branch 4 Photography uses. And if you haven't checked out his channel, I highly recommend you check it out. He is essentially a full-time wedding photographer and is also an ambassador of Fujifilm. He's a Fujifilm X photographer. And his workflow is to edit everything in Lightroom except for sharpening and noise reduction, then export full quality JPEG files at 300 dpi into another application, which he then uses to do his sharpening, noise reduction, and if he decides, grain as well. Now you can still get quite a decent amount of sharpness out at that JPEG stage. And to be honest, Capture One Express is a pretty good piece of software to use for this purpose because it is free for those who own Fujifilm devices. Have you gone through your rite of passage just yet? Let me know in the comments down below which path you decided to choose. Now I know emotions run pretty high on this debate, but let's all remember that there is no right option. Every option has pros and cons, and it really is up to you to decide where you lie on this debate. If you like this video at all, please do hit the like button down below. Of course, if you'd like to see more from me and my channel in the future, hit the subscribe button too, as well as the notification bell if you'd like to get notified when I post a new video. That's all for today. I'll see you in the next one.